So I'm going to throw some numbers at you, and hopefully I don't forget what they were, because that'd be kind of awkward. Bill Russell has 11 championships in his career. Magic Johnson, who I forgot his first name's actually Irvin and not Magic, he's got 5 his own. And then there's the big fundamental, Tim Duncan, Skip Bayless's favorite player, which is apparently worth mentioning. He's got another 5 spot himself. There's the greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan, with 6. I think you get where I'm going at, where historically in the NBA, you need a franchise-changing player to win championships. Larry Bird's got another 3. Then we're going to get to Kobe Bryant, who has 5. I'm choosing to show Kobe and not Shaq because, I don't know, shout out to Kobe. Shaq's a good dude too. And I'm sure LeBron James is going to be continuing this trend. He's already got 3. He's probably going to get a few more before he retires. So typically, you need that top-tier talent to really win in the NBA like that. But the 2004 Pistons have always been an outlier in that one because they don't really have a transcendent talent. They have a lot of very good players who fit in beautifully together. And I want to see the way that team was. Will we ever see another team like that again? A team that can win an NBA championship without having a player that we're going to talk about 20, 30, 40 years from now? Well, what was so good about that team? First and foremost was the defense. I mean, they went up against the two-headed dragon of Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, and they were able to just make them uncomfortable at all times. And I think that's really the first step towards winning without a transcendent talent like that is you got to be fantastic on the defensive side of the floor, because if you're not able to consistently generate buckets just by being super talented, you got to be able to stop the guys on the other end. And that started with Ben Wallace for them, as he was one of the best defensive big men of all time, really. And the thing I love about Ben is when he went to the Bulls, they had to call up the Pistons and they were like, why the hell isn't this guy playing hard? And they were like, oh yeah, you got to give him the ball at the beginning of the game. So basically just throw away your first possession to make sure that Ben gets the ball at least once. Which I just love as a story. But defensively, Wallace was just fantastic. Of course, there was another Wallace as well, Rasheed Wallace, and the created version of him actually doesn't look ridiculous, so I can show him. Those two as a front court were very good defensively, but they also had a guy like Tayshaun Prince, who was a great defensive wing who didn't focus on his offense too much, and I think that's a necessary thing. But of course, there's an offensive side of the floor as well. Chauncey Billups, Mr. Big Shot, and one of my favorite players when I first started watching basketball. A great outside shooter, and someone you always had to pay attention to defensively, and you're going to see that was a theme with this Pistons team, and it's also going to be a theme among the modern-day teams who I think kind of emulate what the Pistons were, as they just had so many guys you had to deal with, even if none of them were like 30-point scorers or anything. There's also Richard Hamilton, who you always had to pay attention to, because he could run off screens like a friggin' madman. I mean, if we look at all the people in the history of the world who have run the most distance, Richard Hamilton's probably up there for how often he ran around screens. And while Tayshaun was great on defense, he was still a good shooter as well. You couldn't just leave him open. And then there was Rasheed Wallace, of course, who, one of the most versatile offensive power forwards ever. Low post game was pretty damn legit. I remember when he came back to the Knicks a few years ago, he's like, I want to show all these young kids what it's like to post up. And then he never posted up at all, and all he did was shoot threes, which is just the perfect ending of Rasheed Wallace's story in the NBA. But still, at his prime, and on this Pistons team, damn good offensively, whether it be in the low post, or from mid-range, and sometimes a three-point line. You always had to care about him. And so I want to look at a couple of teams in the NBA today and see, can any of these teams be the next 2004 Detroit Pistons? We're going to go to Memphis first and foremost, as the Grizzlies, with their grit and grind mentality, kind of show similar qualities to the Pistons, with a team-first mentality, being damn good on defense, and having enough offensively to where you still have to play some respectable D against him. It starts with Mike Conley, who has never made an all-star game, at least I'm pretty sure he hasn't, but he can do it all offensively. Reminds me of Chauncey Billups with his ability to drive inside, but also be effective from outside as well. So Conley, he's the dominant guard of this team. They run a lot of offense through him. And then there's the Marc Gasol factor, a low post scorer who oftentimes you do have to double team, but then when you do double team him, he's perhaps the best passing big man in the league today. And the strength of Gasol is no matter what situation you're in, you always have to account for him, because if he's in the post, he can make a pass. But he's also knocking down three-pointers now, so what Conley and Gasol do for their offense is huge. There's also Zach Randolph, who's still a damn good post presence that they can go to off their bench. And their recent acquisition of Chandler Parsons, if he can be healthy, which is unfortunately a decent if, then he could be that offensive X factor for them, and a guy who can be a damn good outside shooter, as he's shot nearly 40% from three for most of his career. But he's also a very smart offensive player as well, in that he can receive passes from Marc Gasol, and he knows how to get open looks from Mike Conley as well. Just got to be healthy. Defensively, though, this team has had a foundation for a few years now as being one of the best in the league. A big part of that is Tony Allen, who shares similar qualities to Tayshaun Prince. He's really about defense. We've seen him cause problems for star players in the past, most notably Kevin Durant. And I think this is one of those guys you really need, is someone who can be a stopper and just an annoyance for a star player on the opposing team. But this team overall defensively is very good. Mike Conley might not be as good as Tony Allen, but he's towards the top when we talk about defensive point guards. JaMychal Green has also emerged as a power forward who can defend more of the athletic and nimble fours in the NBA today. And of course there is Marc Gasol, and this overall team just has that defensive mentality that gives them a fighting chance against pretty much anybody. But there are some concerns I do have, one of which is Tony Allen's offense, as teams will sometimes just leave him completely wide open and turn it into 4-on-5 basketball, which is very difficult to deal with when you're trying to score in a late game. Also, if you throw Zach Randolph in enough pick and rolls, he's a little slow-footed, you can probably beat him. These little things could catch up to them. I also want to see if any of their backup perimeter players can really be something. Outside of Zach Randolph, I don't know if their second unit can really show up in a big game. There is Troy Daniels who can make threes, but Memphis is still really damn good. Now for the Utah Jazz, Rudy Gobert reminds me a lot of Ben Wallace, as he's one of the most intimidating rim protectors as well as just paint protectors in the NBA today. And I think he is the beginning of Utah being a damn good defensive team. These guys are towards the top 10 in defensive rating right now. They've just been injured a lot this season, and Gobert has been a huge part of that. We should also mention Derek Favors, who is coming back from an injury. He's pretty damn good on defense as well. These two in the front court, Gobert, who can stop you at the rim, and Favors, who can a lot of times stop you from getting there at all, as well as George Hill, who is a very good defensive point guard. That's the beginning of something that could keep a game close against a team like the Golden State Warriors. So they got the first thing down, in my opinion, which is the defense. Rudy Gobert, Derek Favors, George Hill, they're all really good. On the other side of things, they give you a lot of guys you got to deal with. Hill has always been very good at playing off ball, so if he doesn't have the ball in his hand, you still have to pay attention to him. But he's also improved on his ability to create offense for himself as well as others as he's gotten older. Rodney Hood, I'm going to admit his efficiency is beginning to concern me, as he's near 40% from the field. But he's also shown an ability to create his own shot, and that's immediately two guys in the backcourt who, no matter which one of them have the ball in their hand, you have to pay attention to both of them. And then there's Gordon Hayward, who's up over 20 points a game this season. He's their closest thing to a real top 10 player. And between George Hill, Rodney Hood, and Gordon Hayward, three guys who can create with the ball in their hand and play off ball, that reminds me a lot of that Pistons team between Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, and Tayshaun Prince. But then you remember how Rasheed Wallace was a post-up option? Derek Favors is as well. He averaged about 16 points last season. He's only, 25 years old at this point, even though it feels like he's been in the league forever. If you're in the half court and you're struggling to find a bucket, you can throw the ball to Favors in the post, and he has shown to be effective from there. Can also be effective in the pick and roll, finish an alley-oop as well. So 1 through 4, from an offensive standpoint, you have to pay attention to these guys off the bench. Joe Johnson is a shot creator who can make big shots. Shelvin Mack, who kind of came out of nowhere as being a quality backup point guard. Joe Ingles, or Ingles, I don't remember the guy's last name. He's a knockdown three-point shooter off the bench. And then we can see what happens with Dante Exum. But this Jazz team, they have a lot of offensive options that can play off of each other, and they're a pretty deep team as well. I like them a lot. Now we have two more teams here, both in the Eastern Conference. First, the Boston Celtics. In terms of two-way players, they have quite a few of them. Avery Bradley is still definitely fits that bill. There's also Al Horford, their big free agent signing, who can move around the floor and defend a pick and roll really damn well. And no matter where he's standing on the floor, you always have to account for him when you're defending him. There is Jay Crowder, who is a pretty damn strong dude. He gives this team a lot of toughness and heart and energy, who can also play some respectable defense on some of the bigger wings in the NBA. He's also shooting over 40% from three. But Isaiah Thomas is asked to do a ridiculous amount of scoring for this team. And, I mean, obviously they would love to acquire a star player to help him out. But for the sake of this video, if they were not able to do that, they would still have to acquire someone who can do some more creation, maybe off the bench for this team. This team is also very liable to give up offensive rebounds, as they're one of the worst rebounding teams in the league. I think they would need to acquire two types of players to really have a chance of winning a title, or at least being something without a top-tier talent. One of which would be kind of like what Lou Williams is doing for the Lakers right now, and then Nerlens Noel, who can move Horford to the power forward position, and Noel can make him, one, better defensively, more athletic, help him out on the boards. Again, they would love to acquire a star, but for the sake of this video, I think those are the type of guys they would need, and even then, it's still really damn tough to do it without a top player. And finally, the Toronto Raptors, who are the best offensive team in the league right now. Kyle Lowry is almost impossible to stop when he wants to pull up in the pick and roll. DeMar DeRozan is perhaps the best perimeter player when it comes to scoring inside in today's NBA. Terrence Ross has really stepped up this season as a scorer off the bench for them. And this team has a lot of weapons. DeMarre Carroll is beginning to get his stride back after missing the majority of last season with an injury. He is a guy who can hit a three as well as play defense for these guys. There is also Jonas Valanciunas has added enough polish to his game to do more for you than just be simply a big body. Patrick Patterson is a knockdown shooter at the power forward position. All of that is awesome. Until these guys get a real two-way difference maker power forward, I mean, that's the next step. Paul Millsap is, of course, on the trade rumors right now. If they could get Millsap without giving up too much and without sacrificing too much of what makes them really good, then I think that could be, well, it's at least the next thing they need to do. Again, even with all this, it's still really damn tough to win without a transcendent player, if you will. Serge Ibaka, in my opinion, at least should be on the trade rumors, given Orlando's situation and his one-year deal. Maybe they could jump on that if they end up not getting Millsap. There you go. I think the 2004 Pistons, they did not have a top 10 player, but they still managed to do something crazy. He misses this, by the way, so that's cool. Is there anyone in the NBA who can replicate this? I don't know. With guys like LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Kevin Durant in the league, it'll be tough. But it's nice to dream, isn't it?